Welcome to episode 1 of the Boss Battle. I fucked up already. It's a good start, isn't
Take one.
it? Welcome to episode 1 of the Boss Battle podcast, part of the Boss Battle Network. You can watch us on Twitch and YouTube, or follow our podcast on iTunes. My name is James, I'm your host, and with me I've got Chris, lover of all TV and the movie Grandmeister.
Hello.
And I've got Carl, completer, finisher, and lover of Final Fantasy / sex fiend.
Hello.
You wanted sex fiend as your intro.
Factual.
So, this is our first podcast. We're going to be trying to do these every fortnight, maybe even more frequent if we can. And this is our first one, so we want to give you guys a little feel for who we are. So, a little something round table games to give people an idea of what we're into, what our likes and dislikes are. So, Chris, tell me your favourite computer game.
My favourite computer game is a really old one, which won't surprise you two at all. It's Streets of Rage. And the reason is it's the only computer game I've ever completed, albeit, caveat, it was with my cousin in 2-player mode. I really enjoyed that game.
Good game.
Yeah.
Classic.
Good game. I think I had that as a
Sega.
kid. Would that make a drive?
Yeah, Sega.
Yeah.
I think it's on the Xbox at the moment as well, isn't it?
So you get it on 360,
the 360 on the arcade, I think.
Some sort of collection.
It's actually on the App Store as well. On the iPhone, yeah.
Yeah, you can
I
get
need to
your
go on the
iPad
App Store.
for your
You do?
commute, yeah. You used to go to the App Store, yeah. What is the App Store? Carl, same question.
My favourite game would be Final Fantasy VII. Just because it's one of my first memories of playing a game. Kid at Christmas. It was that long ago. And yeah, it's just the story, all the lore. Love it.
Talking about being old. Do you remember the N64 is 20 years old now?
That doesn't make me feel old
years.
at all.
I had it brand new for Christmas. I remember having that. That's terrible. My favourite game, I don't really have a single game. Mine's more of a series, and it's not going to surprise Carl when I say it's Metal Gear Solid. That's kind of my bag. Having said that, I have only played an hour of the very most recent one. I will play that at some point, probably on stream, because I won't have any excuse to do it. Chris, favourite movie?
Oh, that's such a difficult question, isn't it? If I had to pick one, probably The Dark Knight at a push. Yeah.
We know you like your Batman films.
Why? I always loved the original Batman as a kid, and the Joker was always my favourite character, and I never thought I'd top that, particularly because of the childhood sort of fond memories of the first Batman with Jack Nicholson, but the new Christopher Nolan films, I just love the tone. Thought they're brilliant.
Even the third one?
Even the third one.
No. Carl?
Mine would be Enter the Dragon. Bruce Lee. Brought up watching him. My dad watched him all the time. And I think Enter the Dragon because that was his first Western directed film, and there's a lot of nunchuck in there, and I like nunchucks.
I remember you doing nunchucks in your house with a tea towel before you had an actual nunchucks.
Yes, that's very true.
We should
Learning
probably
tip
point
there
out
for
we all
anyone
go
out
back
there.
quite a long way, shouldn't we? Really, we've
Yeah.
all known each other since we were kids.
Yes.
And I've known Carl since we were probably 3 foot tall.
2 toddlers
Yeah, toddlers. That's
playing.
And you've known me since I was 3 foot tall.
Yes, because you're always
Now
3 foot tall.
3.5 foot
Yes.
tall. I haven't really given this enough thought because I've been too busy listening to you guys, and I don't think Again, I've got multiple movies. My brain's going Die Hard or Jurassic Park, Star Wars. I think I'm going to start with Jurassic Park. That's the film that I
that
can
was my
watch.
second choice, yeah.
I'd have had you with Die Hard.
Yeah, I couldn't pick. Well, first of all, they've ruined Die Hard. Die Hard 5 was terrible.
Yes.
But the first 3 are the only ones I acknowledge. The 4th one's a stretch until he jumps on the plane and then I'm out. Jurassic Park is my favourite, I think. That's my most watchable. Or, I really like The Lost World, though. Controversially, I don't think Jurassic Park 1 is my favourite because I like double T-Rex.
Take
And
a
I
breath.
quite like Julianne Moore at the time because she's pretty.
And you like your gingers.
I'm going to cut that bit out. So that's a bit about us. We'll probably do little bits there. I think you'll probably get to know more than enough about us as we go on with these podcasts. But what has everyone been playing / watching this week? Chris?
Playing Zero on account of not having a console.
I meant to get you Candy Crush for your iPhone.
Yes.
It's getting Streets of Rage.
You can do like an ongoing Candy Crush. What level's Chris at this week?
However, I have watched a couple of films, actually. I've been to the cinema twice this week, so I'll talk about the most recent one because it's in my head because I saw it yesterday, and it's Hell or High Water, which you might not have heard of. I hadn't until I Googled films that are on, because I had a day off work, and I thought, I'll go to the cinema. And it's a I was going to say Western. It's not a Western at all. It's set in Texas, and it's meant to be based on a true story. I haven't quite gone onto Wikipedia like you do after you see a film to see how accurate it was. But it's about two brothers who, one of which has not long got out of prison, and they hatch a plan to rob banks locally, but not on a big scale. So they take sort of smaller notes and things like that, with a view to reclaiming their mum's estate, and then also setting the younger brother's children, who he's estranged from, up for life. And it's actually really good. So Jeff Bridges is in it. He plays the old cop just about to retire. It's his last case. A little bit stereotypical. And it's also got Chris Pine, so the guy who was Captain Kirk in the recent Star Trek films. And I actually highly recommend it. It's a really good film.
I think I did see the trailer or something for it, actually. It did look quite interesting.
Surprisingly good, yeah.
As you started talking about it, I think I have seen the trailer and I saw Chris Pine's face and thought, nah, I'm good.
Yeah, it's really, really enjoyable.
What was the other film you saw?
Sausage Party.
Is that good?
I thought it was really good for about 50 minutes, and then kind of felt like the same joke a little bit then, and got a bit repetitive, and then the end, just last 20 minutes just playing weird.
Yeah.
And you've seen it?
Because I've seen it before Chris, and I did say the last sort of bit does feel... You can tell it's a Seth Rogen film because it gets weird.
Yeah.
And not drugs weird,
Not
which
drugs.
normally is Seth Rogen's way, but
you
it's
mean
the other way.
Apocalypse was weird? Was that officially a Seth Rogen film, or was he just in it?
What was that?
Is it, no, you mean,
Oh,
that's
this is
TV
the
show,
end.
isn't
I
it?
haven't seen
This
it,
is
but
the end,
yeah, that's Seth Rogen.
I'm confusing you.
Oh,
with
I have
Apocalypse.
seen that. Yeah, that is quite good, actually. It's a bit trippy as well, but it's quite good.
Slightly off topic, and the reason I think You, Me and the Apocalypse has come back into my head, that was a Sky One show, wasn't it, I think last year?
Yeah.
I was watching YouTube videos. Have you ever followed or seen a guy called Colin Furze? If you haven't, you need to look him up. He's
No.
bonkers. He's absolutely mental. He was on a Sky One show, which was their attempt to rip off the Gadget show, and he was on that for a little while, but he's basically a YouTube sensation in his own right.
Yeah.
And he does crazy builds. Like, he's got a little studio, he just builds weird stuff like Wolverine claws, like hydraulic Wolverine claws.
Oh, okay.
And also the crazy stuff. He's got a guitar that breathes fire. And You, Me and the Apocalypse, Sky One gave him a bunch of money to do something to help promote the show. And they said, what would you do? And he said, I would build a bunker in my garden. And they went, go on then, build a bunker. So there's a 5-part YouTube video. They're about 5-6 minutes long each. Well worth watching. And he basically excavates his garden, has a digger come in, digs 3 meters deep, this huge crater at the back of his garden. He builds a metal shelter in there, fills it all in with concrete, builds a tunnel that then comes up with an escape hatch in a shed. And then it's all powered and everything. And he basically turns it into a man cave, underground man cave in his garden. You look out his garden at the end, it's just lawn. You can't see it. And you go down to this shed in the bottom of the garden, it looks really unassuming. Go in, pull this hatch up, and there's a tunnel that drops down into his metal man cave. It's brilliant.
That sounds like it should be sponsored by Bethesda.
I watched it and just thought, I want one. Can I get a digger into my garden? No. Would I if I could? Yes. Sorry. Anyway, Carl, what have you been watching this week?
I watched Stranger Things. I binge watched that over the week. I know Chris has seen that as well.
Yes, I have.
I might have to leave the room when you start talking about that then.
Well, we won't give any spoilers because obviously there's people listening who might not
Yeah.
have seen it either. But it is very, very good. If I had to describe it for anyone who's not seen it, James, I would say it's kind of a cross between The Goonies, E.T., Akira, weirdly enough, and Aliens.
Okay. I've heard the Goonies thing, which was
Good. The
kind of
Goonies is very present
what
there.
drew me in, but I don't know what Akira is.
It's an anime.
And yeah, I knew it was anime. I just
Yeah.
don't know what it is. And I've watched the Aliens films, but I don't think I've ever sat and watched them in order. So they're all in bits in my head.
Yeah.
I get really confused. I think I saw Alien 2 before I saw Alien 1 or Aliens, what it's called.
Yeah.
Okay. I have only done one bit of watching this week. For everybody listening, I have a child who's 18 months old, so I don't get to do anything. So when I do, I squeeze it in. So I watched an early copy of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2 Out of the Shadows, is that I think it's called?
Yep.
Out of the Shadows. I was really looking forward to it because I like the idea of Bebop and Rocksteady, and I like the idea of Krang. I thought it was okay. I kind of came away from it thinking the CGI was a bit naff. I kind of watched the likes of Stephen... is it Stephen Amell?
Yeah.
Yeah. Amell interacting with the turtles at certain points and thinking, you just don't look like you're there. You're staring at the turtles' chests when you're talking to their faces. It was just little things that didn't seem quite right to me. The graphics put me off a lot. It brought me out the story more than it kept me in it. I thought Shredder was massively disappointing.
Yeah.
I'm
I
going to
think
assume people have seen this. I think over a year or so, the spoiler thing doesn't apply, by the way, for this. I think if it's fresh, we should say spoiler alert, but I think this has been out more than enough people to have seen it. But yeah, the Shredder, I mean, they kind of made him a bit of a mess in the first film by making him a giant robot. Was it even the same actor? I found myself looking at him thinking, I don't remember you being in the first Turtles. I thought the Shredder was older.
I think you heard his voice. I think that was about it, but I don't think.
But you did see his face. I'm sure you saw him I'm sure he was an older guy in the first film. What confused me was at the end of the first film, he's seen clutching the mutagen, isn't he? After he's been squished under the building. Yeah. So you think to yourself, right, he isn't dead. That's going to keep him alive. He's got the mutagen in him. So I wondered if I was remembering correctly and he was older, and therefore he was now, like, I don't know, the mutagen had regenerated him or something. Because I just didn't think I'd seen that bloke. I thought you're a completely new guy to me. And he didn't really shred her up enough for me. He spent too long walking around as himself. I wanted to see the mask. I wanted to see him fight with her. He didn't do anything.
He spent all the time letting Bebop and Rocksteady do it, didn't he?
Yeah, I don't think he actually has a fight. I'm thinking now. The only time he got his big, knives out, or claws out, whatever you want to call them, was just before Krang freezes him and shoves him in a box. I was like, I don't quite understand what just happened.
It's Michael Bay, isn't it? It's style over substance. I mean, just look at all the Transformers.
And Megan Fox is just the same person every time I watch her.
Yeah.
She's not April O'Neil. She's just Megan Fox.
Even the other guy as well. He's just a goofy
Will Arnett.
Yeah.
Yeah, I quite liked him though. I didn't mind his character.
Yeah.
Was he Flying Falcon or something like that? I thought it was okay. It was an easy watch. I quite liked Bebop and Rocksteady, but again, the CGI at times was poor. And if I was watching a cartoon, not a movie, like a real, I don't know what you call it, live action movie, it just didn't do it for me.
I thought Bebop and Rocksteady were the OnePlus. I agree.
Yeah,
I thought they were done quite well actually.
Yeah.
I thought Stephen Amell did quite well as Casey.
I thought he was all right. I don't think he's a great actor though. From what we know,
his background from wrestling.
Stephen Amell.
Yeah, his background is wrestling. He started as wrestling.
He's been in wrestling. I don't think he was a proper wrestler, was he? But either way, having watched the 3 seasons of Arrow and then given up with that, his acting's pretty poor.
Yeah, he's not the best.
I wasn't a huge fan.
The one part that I loved about that film was the beginning where the shurikens went around Paramount instead of the stars.
So you didn't not really the film.
That made me crease.
Yeah, that was quite funny. I did wonder if they were going to sort of change into stars by the time it had settled, but they didn't, did they? I did watch that. That was quite funny, but I don't know. It was okay. A couple of hours. It was easy watching, but I wasn't thrilled with it, and I don't know. There was a lot. It suffers from a lot of these films where they put loads and loads of characters in, and they have all these enemies and all these different people you've got to get to know. So you've got Casey Jones, you've got Bebop and Rocksteady, you've got a different, or albeit reincarnation of Shredder. Then we've got Krang. And it was just all a bit too convenient. It was a bit like so Independence Day, the new one we saw recently, and I think we all felt similarly about that. And then Star Trek Beyond a little bit for me. It was all a bit too easy. Donatello hacked what's it now called? The Technodrome.
Yeah.
He hacks the Technodrome in a matter of seconds and works out how to defeat it, and it's only just started coming through a portal. How does that work? Yeah. It's all way too easy.
It's all over the top as well, isn't it?
He's got 3 massive fingers. How can you even use a keyboard? It doesn't make any sense.
It's all a bit over the top of the way they surfed it all back to the Technodrome as if now it all just come back together. How it's just like
it was all far too convenient for me. Although I did like it when the little eye popped out the Technodrome and it got a little bit nostalgic to me. And then the best bit for me of the whole film, and this tells you enough about the film I think, was the very end when the ending credits played the classic Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles theme tune.
Yes.
And I was like, yes, that's what I wanted. And that was my favourite bit, and then I was done.
I like the Vanilla Ice reference in the jukebox. It's not the same song, but they play Vanilla Ice on the jukebox in the bar, and it's a reference to...
Because they had Turtle Power at the end as well, didn't they? Which was from the original Turtles movie. Yeah. There's a reference to that in the credits. And those are my favourite bits. The rest of the film I could live without. I actually think I preferred the first one.
I both equally average.
For you.
Although I think I vaguely remember from the first one, the taking of it was you've got to work together. And it seems like they just completely forgot about that in the second film because it was pretty much the same concept.
Yeah, the brother Leo and Raph, the usual story. It doesn't help with that film as well that it's attached to what we grew up in the 80s, so we were incredibly fond of that source material and whatnot. So it's never it's always gonna struggle, isn't it, to live up to it. Moving a similar theme, really. Stranger Things thing I loved about that, and it's not spoiling anything for James, but it just if growing up in the sort of 80s in terms of your childhood films, it's that American suburbia. It's great, and the kids and the Goonies, and it's brilliant. You'll love it.
I will give it a watch, but I'm on Jessica Jones at the moment, so I've got to get past that first. About a few episodes into that, I've just got the Purple Man. Literally just had the Purple Man. Mm-hmm. So I'll get there. I will catch up. Well, we spent a long time talking about what we've been watching. That's a good 15 minutes of our show, so let's get on with some of the stuff we wanted to talk about. So I've brought to the table PS4 Pro, which was announced this week, end of last week. Quite
I think it was end of last
It was
week.
end of last week. So it was announced very recently.
It's
Anyway,
TGS on the moment, isn't it? Tokyo Game Show.
Yeah. So this was PlayStation's rumoured Neo, which I still think was a better name.
Yeah.
It's now the PS4 Pro. Chris, I appreciate you're not going to have a clue what we're talking about now. For context, Chris doesn't play games, doesn't have a console. He's a movie and TV guy, but he's going to try and participate. You can have a go, aren't you?
Yep.
He's going to play Streets of Rage on his phone.
So, first of all,
Just downloading
in fact,
Candy
this is-
Crush. So.
It's probably a valid question for Chris, actually, and for you both. Before we even get into the details between the two consoles and all that stuff, what do you think when you hear PS4 Pro? Chris first.
I think it sounds like a portable PlayStation device, but I could be completely wrong there.
You are completely wrong, but that's interesting. What do you think? What did you think of the name?
When I hear PS4 Pro, I just think MacBook Pro. I just think Apple.
Yeah,
Whenever you stick a Pro on anything these days, it reminds me of Apple.
I would say
And
arguably
MacBook
both
Pros and
companies can have that label at them, though, can't they? I mean, Xbox One S is a bit like the iPhone 6S or whatever.
Yeah, I didn't think of that, but yeah.
PS4 Pro, yeah. I mean, I've got the iPad Pro. I don't know. To me, and this is a personal opinion, Pro doesn't match up with gaming. Gaming is, I know there are pro gamers, but let's be honest, they're not playing on a PS4 or an Xbox. They're playing on PCs and God knows what else. So for me, a pro gaming console doesn't match up because I think of pro and I think professional. So the iPad Pro is the iPad for the workplace, effectively. Do you know? And the MacBook Pro is your MacBook for someone who wants to do more heavy lifting than a normal casual sort of MacBook user who's going to blog and read the internet. So it just felt weird to me. I didn't get it. It's not thrilled me. I'm certainly not buying one. I mean, look at the technical specs on it.
I suppose they could call it the PlayStation 4S.
4.5 I'd have been happy with.
Yeah, 4.5.
Because they've said that this is the only other console they're going to release now before there's a new one. I think they said that, or at least for a few years.
For a while, I think they were saying.
And the weird thing as well for me was that so with the Xbox, and Chris, I only fill you on this. Let's give you the story. So not that long ago at E3, Xbox announced the Xbox One S, which is a slimmer, slightly upgraded version of the current Xbox. And that was replacing effectively the current Xbox. So the old Xbox, they'll still be in the shops, but they're not making them anymore. Mm-hmm. And the Xbox One S is now the new standard Xbox. And they teased and announced a super-powered Xbox, which is going to come next year, called the Scorpio.
Right.
So that's where the Xbox is at. PlayStation has been rumoured to have this Neo, sort of a similar kind of pro console, boosted console, coming out, but hadn't confirmed anything. And then last week they confirmed its existence. They said it's coming out this year. It's going to cost, I think, £400, $399, something like that, I think. But they also announced at the same time a slimmer version of the current PS4, which is effectively replacing the PS4 as we know it today. So now PlayStation have the PS4 Slim, which is what they've been selling for 2 years now, and they've got the PS4 Pro, which is the boosted up, more RAM, more teraflops, and all this stuff to make, and it's 4K and all these sorts of things. It just feels weird that they've got these two things together. Xbox went, well, we're going to put a little extra power in. It's not as powerful as the Pro, but they're going to put this in, and it's going to take the place of the current Xbox. And then next year, we'll give you the beefy thing, which is already rumoured to be much more powerful than this PS4 Pro is. Yeah. And then PlayStation dropped the Slim, which is I think now slightly cheaper than it was previously, with a small reduction. I can't remember. I think it's like $250. Might be wrong. I'll have to check that.
I think it'll depend where you're buying it.
And then the PS4 Pro alongside it, I think it was about $100 difference on the stuff I've been listening to. So I guess that usually we get stiffed in the pound, don't we? It's usually the same again. So it'll be £100 difference for the Pro version. I just don't get it. It doesn't make any sense to me, and I haven't heard anyone. And I've listened to a few of the podcasts, PlayStation podcasts specifically, and even the fanboys are just not sure what this is about.
Yeah.
And the other thing that's weird is the main ingredient for this is 4K. So you want 4Ks?
I do. I've got a 4K television. Yeah,
You have got a 4K television.
Yeah, you
model.
talked me into it.
Do you have any 4K content? Not yet.
No.
So I did talk you into it. So the 4K. So basically, the PlayStation original PS4 and the original Xbox weren't 4K. The new ones are 4K, although it's upscaled. It's not true 4K. PlayStation. So Sony, as a company that make the PlayStation, Sony are the champions of Blu-ray. They won the war between Blu-ray and HD DVD. Yeah. You can now buy 4K Blu-rays, but their PlayStation does not play 4K Blu-rays. So the PS4 Pro doesn't support Blu-ray discs, 4K Blu-ray discs, which just seems really backwards. So it only supports streaming and some form of 4K gaming in some flavour, and they're calling it 4K at the moment. It's not true 4K. Whereas the Xbox One S does sort of upscaled 4K gaming, but has a 4K Blu-ray drive in it. So the Xbox One S is considerably cheaper than the PS4 Pro, and does more to manage that 4K move, which doesn't make sense to me. I don't understand why.
Baffling, isn't
The
it?
company who makes the technology, who have championed and won that war, the whole Betamax VHS thing, they won that war and then didn't bother to stick it in their new console, which is supposed to be the Pro. I don't know, it's a strange decision for me. Someone probably thinks that's a good idea, but I don't get it. Some people have said it's about trying to provide a digital streaming future and they're not interested in physical
That would
media.
be all good if the internet could. A lot of internets in some places wouldn't be able to.
I think you need 10 to 15 meg download to be able to stream in 4K.
Really?
But then the movies are like, I don't know, 5, 6 gig, 8 gig, 10 gig. They're massive. So if you've got a limited broadband, per month data allowance, you're screwed.
Yeah.
So I don't know who it's for. And the 4K TVs, I mean, you'll be pleased with this comment. 4K TVs are not mainstream by any stretch. They're still very much, if you decided to do it when you changed your TV very recently, you probably got one.
Yeah.
If you've got loads of money and you're spending, you're happy to splash it the cash, you might have one. But it's not like 1080p HD. Even 3D is probably in more homes at the moment, I would guess, than 4K, just because
definitely.
there was a fad where all the TVs were 3D and people aren't using it. So
Well,
I don't know, they're aiming at a market that isn't there yet. So I don't know who it's for. I just don't get it.
As an outsider, clearly from my guess that it was a portable device, is it not just Sony trying to be cute and have more new, bigger stream of new products to almost maybe capture the kids that just want everything? So the kid that has the Xbox and the PlayStation and the what's the portable Nintendo device?
The DS.
DS. So some
3DS.
people have everything.
Yeah.
And they're just trying to corner that market and go, if we get more things in early, then we'll just generate sales purely on that.
Possibly, but this is the weird thing. So I don't understand. So PlayStation, the other thing that you won't be aware of, which you're more than welcome to sample when it turns up. I've got one on order. The PlayStation VR headset comes out in October, around the same sort of time as the PS4 Pro. And this is the only place where the PS4 Pro offered any real obvious benefits, was that it could handle a better frame rate or refresh rate, I think, inside the PSVR headset. So the PSVR plugs into your PlayStation 4 and you wear the headset and you can play all these VR experiences.
Yeah.
It's the cheapest way into VR. If you want to go Oculus Rift or Vive, it's like £800 plus a super gaming rig. This is like 350 quid and you've got to have a PlayStation 4, so it's much more affordable.
Yeah.
So it sits neatly alongside that, but it just messes at the marketplace, I think, a little bit. I mean, it is a money-making exercise. You've hit the nail on the head. It's basically just a case of, let's try and grab some extra cash.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people in gaming don't quite understand this need for an iteration on a console. There's never been that before. There was never an N64.5.
No.
There was never a PlayStation 2.5. It was just, there were iterations on the body. They got slimmer, they changed shape, but they never changed the guts. This is the first time that they've now broken that up. And they said, well, you've got a PS4 that will play it this way, PS4 Pro that will play it slightly better this way, but eventually there'll be a PS5. So, I don't know, it's weird. They're trying to follow the iPhone model.
Yeah, they're
but it doesn't
moving with
make
the
any
times,
sense.
aren't they?
Yeah. But it doesn't. But that's the thing on gaming on iPhone isn't what that is there for. The iterations are obviously to keep selling devices. Same thing you've just mentioned. But it's increasing the power. It makes the whole experience better. It doesn't. I mean, it takes quite a while for any games to become obsolete on an iOS device. You're talking probably a few devices down the line before the game won't work.
Oh, that I don't.
So it's and they're not, the graphic fidelity is not better. It doesn't play nicer on my 6S than a 5S.
No.
It might be a little faster loading. It might be a bit more reliable, but it's not going to play any differently. The graphics don't get any better. I don't get it. I
don't really get much gaming on a device anyway. I get bored. I mean, I got bored of Pokemon Go after a couple of weeks. Yeah,
I've come back.
I don't play it
played
anymore.
Yeah, I've kind of.
I don't see the point in it anymore. It was all a bit of a fad, and I think a lot of the people I know who've played it don't play it anymore.
No,
it's just been a bit of a fad.
But then people will jump back in when they launch the next batch of Pokemon, and they'll get some people back in. But I'm the same. I played it probably more than you did.
Yeah.
And I continue to play it longer than you did, but I've kind of given up with it now. I
think there's
I
a
open
new
it every
update.
so often. Yeah,
like
the
a
buddy system.
Yeah.
I've got a buddy on mine, but I opened it, did it, and then I haven't properly used it. I've opened it every so often to have a look, but I've not properly played it like I was playing it before. And it's ironically, it's probably the easiest thing for me to play because I can do it on my commute, which is the only time I get to myself. So it's an odd one. I don't get it, but I thought I'd bring it up. I've got an Xbox One S coming next week, so I'm looking forward to that. I'll do an unboxing of some description. But I haven't bought it for any other reason than I wanted another console to stream with. I did, and I've got a 4K TV not using 4K, so why not give it a go? But I want to buy a 4K Blu-ray to test it out, which I couldn't do on a PS4 Pro, which cost me more money than an Xbox One S. But that was mine. That was one of my topics. So I thought I'd get one of mine out of the way first. Carl, would you like to go next?
Sure. Well, one of the other games I'm playing at the moment, which I play every now and again, and I did play it quite hardcorely.
Is that even a
A
word?
few weeks ago. Yes, it is a word. I just made it up. Hardcorely.
Grammar police.
Was Overwatch. Playing it on the Xbox. I've watched a few streams of it on the PC as well. It seems like a completely different game on the PC, just from the aiming and things like that. But I just love the way Blizzard have done what they're doing with the game. Like there's no DLC for it. Once you've bought the game, I mean, I remember going back to the days of where you didn't have DLC, you had the game and it was just the game. And now this is effectively the same thing. You bought the game and you get every character that they release there and then, and everything that they release. The only thing they do have like extra content is you can buy boxes and you can buy them in bulk or whatever.
That's the in-game crates, isn't it?
Yeah, which you can buy, and that's the only.
I've played it a little bit, but for Chris's benefit, who doesn't have a clue what that means.
Nope.
It's just like so you're able to fast track your way through these crates, aren't you, by spending real world money to buy?
Yeah, but it's just all
crates.
Cosmetic
Yeah.
items.
Okay.
It doesn't actually change the game; it just changes the look of your character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I also like the way they're sort of using the community to sort of reveal characters in a way. And I think a lot of people who are familiar with following this sort of thing, there's a whole version of Reddit called the Game Detectives who went through. They found packets of data that was in trailers for the summer games, and they all put it down to like a QR code and scanned it, and it was something from Sombra who was saying this, and it was given a countdown which stopped, and then that stopped, and it's just like put the community in a frenzy. And I think it's a really interesting way of marketing your game and letting the community basically advertise your game for you, and I think it's very clever. And I like the way games are now using like betas, free weekends, free play hours. I think a lot of that has come about recently, and I like the way they're doing that. I think it's really clever.
So for Chris's benefit, Overwatch is I don't know it's a team-based shooting game.
Yeah, it's a multiplayer game, and you can pick a character. There's different characters do different things. You have like tanks who can take a lot of damage, and you have like smaller characters who can do more damage, and then you have support characters who can heal other characters. And I think it's just the way Blizzard portray their characters, and the lore isn't actually on the game like normal games. Like normal games, you'll have like a cutscene, and it'll tell you a story of this character and this character. But this is all you have to find on the internet, and have like animated shorts of some certain characters. Some of them came out before the game or when the beta was out, and then there's one recently, Bastion. He had a short that came out recently, and it's basically just showing some of the story. It's like it's not all there to you if you watch now. It's like gradually as the game progresses and evolves.
So is it a paid for game, like normal, or is it one where it's got added? You know, you said about the free...
No, it's a paid for game. So you pay £40-50 for the game,
Yeah.
and then that's all you pay. You don't pay any extra.
But that's interesting that Chris said that, because that was one of the things that was levelled at Overwatch before it came out, was that when you looked at it, it's quite bare bones. There's not really much there when you think about it.
Yeah.
If you compare it to other games that have gone the same way, so Titanfall was a multiplayer-only game, probably got more in it than Overwatch had in terms of the amount of maps, the amount of not so much the characters, but that game lost its community fairly quickly and went down to a small number. Overwatch has been hugely successful.
Yeah.
Evolve was another one, wasn't it? Evolve had a unique gameplay twist, but it was multiplayer only, died a death.
Yeah.
So multiplayer only games don't tend to do that well. People, even if people don't play the story mode, so this is one of the interesting things, wasn't it? Call of Duty, I think Activision did. They obviously conceal the analytics on their games, and they took a view on their own games, and I think I don't know what the percentages were, but it was something ridiculous, like 90, 97, 98% of people and time spent in the game is in multiplayer, and only a very small fraction on the single player.
Yeah.
But if they were to exclude the single player, the backlash from fans is ridiculous, even though the majority of people's playing time isn't spent doing it. But so Overwatch coming out as a multiplayer-only game with basically one game mode, which was kill each other. There's a couple of different twists on it, but it's the gameplay is very similar.
Yeah.
There are a lot of other games that are on the PC specifically, which are free to play, aren't they, that follow a similar model.
Yeah.
And then you pay real world money then to unlock things
Yeah.
to enhance your game. But if you wanted to play it for free, you could always play it for free. But Overwatch, like you said, is a £40 game, £50 game, full price game basically, which is they're adding to now, aren't they? So there's a few new maps. There's a couple of is it one character or two now?
One character come out
and one,
after the release.
Yeah, one more.
And there's obviously that whole secrecy
Sombra
about Sombra.
But they've just created, as Carl was saying, this sort of complete. It's almost like an Easter egg hunt, isn't it? Around the game,
effectively.
outside of the game. So so all the stories told through YouTube videos.
Yeah.
and
there's a comic as well.
Websites and a comic and stuff like that. And then they've got this wild goose chase going on at the moment for all these details around this character. Inevitably, though, the problem with this is the character's going to come out and be really disappointing. How good can this character possibly be to make all this effort worth it? I don't know whether it's one of those things that they're going to set themselves up for a kind of disappointing reveal when it finally comes out. Is it because people will start to decide what they want this to be, and then it won't be that for everyone?
Yeah, people are actually worried that she's actually going to be stealth, which would just add a complete new dynamic to the game.
Okay.
Yeah. And actually, I thought when Anna was released that Anna was going to be Sombra, because a lot of the bits that people seen was showing her. They thought that was going to be Sombra, because Sombra's said about a lot during the game, but you don't actually see her, and they thought that was going to be Sombra, but it actually turned out to be Anna. So kind of.
Do you think the next character that drops will be this Sombra then, or do you think it'll be someone else and they'll keep the weight going? Because when they drop that person,
I think it'll be Sombra.
So you think because then after surely once they've dropped that character, they're going to have to then start another big egg chase or whatever for the next character.
They will do. Yeah.
But then they have revealed a character in between, because they didn't really tease Anna, did they, or Anna, whatever her name is? They just dropped her.
Yeah, pretty much.
And it wasn't what everyone expected.
No.
Interesting. Was that your piece on Overwatch? Did you have anything else?
Yeah, I'll come back to my other piece in a minute.
Chris, do you want to pick up? You've got TV. We kind of talked about your Stranger Things, haven't we?
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about it any more?
Well, how would you describe it then, as I described it with Goonies and this, that, and the other?
You captured it really, really well. I just thought it was one big nostalgia trip from my childhood, like that suburbia, like kids on their bikes, the time before the internet. I love all the loads of references, and it's not giving anything away to plot, but there's lots of Star Wars references, so as a Star Wars fan, you'll love those. Some literally really blatant as well, like they're not clever, sort of some of them references, they're clearly wanted to homage Star Wars and anything remotely
a lot of
associated
Dungeons
with
and
the
Dragons there as
yes.
well, which obviously we won't get because we're not that much of massive nerds.
And do you know what I found unique?
Instantly alienating partials of our potential audience. It's absolutely acceptable to like Dungeons and Dragons.
It is. I think it looks pretty cool.
At the risk of not wanting to alienate most parents out there, but usually TV shows where you get quite heavily featured children in the cast can be really annoying as actors. But actually, I thought every single act, like all of the cast in terms of the younger ones, were all brilliant actors, and you all bought into their characters. Whereas normally in that sort of show, there'd be at least one that just irritates you quite frankly. So.
And I don't think there was as much focus on the kids of what you'd expect. Yeah. Especially if you reference the Goonies, obviously that is all about the kids.
Yeah,
but there's a lot of the adults in here as well. Like the mum played by Winona Ryder.
Yes,
she does that really well. And the guy as well. The cop guy. I've seen him in a few things. He was in Jack Reacher, and he was pretty good in that.
Really good.
And he plays that well.
And even the creepy, I think it's Matthew Modine, but the creepy scientist.
Oh, the doctor guy.
Just all work really well. Fantastic show.
It is very good. Very good.
And it's not long for James's benefit to actually watch 6 or 8 episodes.
8 episodes.
8 episodes, 40 minutes.
40 minutes.
Yeah. By today's box set standards, it doesn't take long to binge.
Yeah, it's not like 24 of Arrow and Flash and whatnot.
Yeah, they got a bit too long, didn't they?
Yeah.
It's off-putting though for me, and it's I can't binge these things like you guys get to do. So when I'm watching them, I have to try and pick and choose. So that's why I finally got around to Daredevil season 2 a few weeks ago. Thoroughly enjoyed that. Really liked it. I've started Jessica Jones, although probably not really ready for that yet because it comes too quickly off the back of Daredevil for me. But I'm enjoying it, and I'm sure it'll get better. But I might give that a go, maybe in between, and come back to Jessica Jones after I've maybe blasted through Stranger Things. Because season 2's already sealed and on the go, isn't it?
They've confirmed
Jessica Jones or Stranger Things?
Stranger Things.
Yeah.
I know Jessica Jones is getting a season.
Yeah,
2
they've
as well,
confirmed
Yeah,
it's there
that'll
is
be
a
after
season
Luke
2.
Cage, won't it? And then we've
Yeah.
got Iron Fist still to come. Yeah, haven't we? For that,
Yeah, that looks
for
good. I've seen the trailer for that as well.
I've got one. You might actually be able to get on board with this,
Go on.
Chris. That is. I'm looking at you. I'm not telling the people listening who I'm talking to. Super Mario Run on the iOS. So that was part of Apple's announcement when they released the iPhone 7. All the people panicking over losing their headphone jack. Does anyone care about that, by the way?
Not really. It comes with an adapter.
No.
I'm thinking more like Chris here, because Chris is a bit more
I
old school.
haven't got a set of Bluetooth headphones. However, it might force me to purchase one once I get.
It comes with a tiny adapter anyway.
Yeah, you
So
can
you
still
just
use an
literally
adapter if
plug
you
it
want to. But I'm all Bluetooth. I've got about 2 or 3 sets of Bluetooth headsets, so I'm not worried. But I just thought, I don't know, it's a headphone jack.
Yeah.
It's not the end of the world. There's an adapter if you don't like it.
And there's, I mean, when I watched the keynote, there's a lot of reason to take it out because it is ancient.
Well, you can't make it. Well, there's 2 things. One of them was space, wasn't it? Because the
Yeah,
headphone jack
well,
actually
space was the big
takes
thing.
up significant space. But
Yeah.
the other thing was they can't make it waterproof if the headphone jack remains.
Yeah, that's
Whereas
big
now
one.
they've taken that out, they can make it. Oh, it's not waterproof. Yet, it's
Water
water
resistant.
resistant.
Yeah.
But the next one will be waterproof. That's one of the things that annoyed me. So I've got my Apple Watch. The Series 2 of the Apple Watch inevitably had the things that the day this came out I said it would have to have. Was it's now got its own GPRS or GPS, whatever you want to call
Yeah.
it, for tracking your runs and stuff.
Yeah.
Which before had to be used for the phone, which made no sense. And then it's also water resistant, so you can swim with it, but not in salty water. A bit random. So you can go swimming in the pool with it, but you don't take it in the sea.
Yeah.
It's really weird. I don't get that, but there's probably some sort of clever reason why, but I don't understand it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so as part of that announcement, which was really random, Nintendo finally brought a game that people care about to the iPhone. I know the Pokemon Go is technically a Nintendo product, but it's not a Nintendo company, for information. And what was it?
We'll leave Zelda out of it as well.
Zelda's not on the iPhone.
Well, no, but it's still a Nintendo company.
Oh,
game.
but that is a Nintendo product, whereas Pokemon's not a Nintendo owned
No.
company. So it's always been a Nintendo exclusive, but it's not a Nintendo company. Pokemon is separate, which is why when it released, slightly off topic, Nintendo's value went up to 75 million quid or whatever it was, and then very quickly came back down when all the investors realised that they don't actually own Pokemon. So it was really funny. But so we've had Miitomo, which was pretty bad. I didn't even download it. Did you? Did you even know it come out? Oh, there we go. Which was basically just a rip-off of the Wii characters and some weird social.
Oh, I did see
networking.
something about it. Yeah.
I didn't really go for it, but Mario's the first proper Nintendo recognisable character to come to the iOS. It's not an endless runner, strictly speaking, but it is a continuous runner. So it's based and structured in levels. It looks really good. I think it's really interesting. You can play it with one hand. There's no controls.
Yeah.
It literally is Mario runs and you do touch commands to make him do things. We probably don't know much more than that
Jump,
at the
isn't
moment.
it? I think. The only command is jump and maybe double jump.
But there's like double jumps and stuff, and there are things that will stop him. I don't know with the other stuff, but apparently you can play with one hand. It looks really good. The graphics look really nice. I like the idea of having a Nintendo game. It's also going to be paid for, so it's not one of these free things where you have to do in-app purchases.
Yeah,
They said it's
which
going to come. I hate that. I absolutely hate that
I
model.
hate it as well.
So this is going to be like, I don't know, $2-3.99, whatever they say it's going to be. I mean, to make it, they could put 10 quid on it, people will pay it. They'll make an absolute fortune on this.
Yeah, I've bought a few £10 Final Fantasy games on the iPhone.
Really? I haven't gone that far yet. I think the most expensive app I ever bought was 20 quid, but that was a remote control, like a Citrix style dialing connection thing, which now is free, ironically. But it was 20 quid a few years ago. But game wise, I never spent more than about 6 or 7 quid, and I bet Connors has never spent 99p on a game.
I don't think I have, no.
No.
Oh, no, I did. A quiz
You might have to
game.
when you download
One of
Streets of
the
Rage.
heads up or quiz up or something.
Heads Up.
Heads up. I paid for that.
Degeneres' app.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was
Well,
about £2 or something.
I could see you getting in on a bit of Mario action, a bit of
Yeah.
commute between Sky episodes or whatever it is you're watching. But I mean, have a look at the video. It looks really good fun. It looks really. I'm definitely.
It's
gonna
very
buy it.
easy.
It's funny though. It's the first. I think it's the first app which they've put in the App Store that hasn't actually been released yet. So you can go in there. There's not even a pre-order. It's just a notify. So there's no price on it. It literally just says.
That's right. Yeah.
Notify. I've
Yeah.
never seen that on any app before.
No, neither have I.
But then I think there's probably nothing being. I mean, possible exception of Pokemon, but that kind of just dropped out of nowhere when it eventually came round. But I think that's the first time they've had an app that you could just go in and look for. Because in fact, Pokemon simply wasn't in the App Store until it arrived. So when it was out in the US and hadn't come out here, I was searching every day for it. It never came. Whereas Mario, you can go and search for now, and it's there.
Yeah.
And you choose
It might be
notify.
an
and
iOS
it's gonna
10
tell you.
feature, maybe.
Well, I did it before it upgraded.
Was it?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I did it before it upgraded, but which was an entirely other story. Broke my phone, I wasn't happy, but it's on 10 now. Separate topic. That was my little bit of Mario. I wanted to talk about it because I'm excited for it.
I'd just like to add how cool the Olympics handover ceremony was for Tokyo, where their Prime Minister dressed as Mario. I thought it was brilliant.
Is that
That
where the
was
next
genius.
Olympics is? Tokyo?
Yeah, 2020.
Oh, right.
Did you not see the closing thing?
No,
it was really
I didn't
funny.
watch much of the Olympics.
They showed.
Too busy playing Overwatch.
I don't know what the exact. You might be able to fill in better than this.
No,
but
I've just seen the images, which I thought was brilliant.
basically, he starts off. So they show the president in. I think he was in Japan, I assume, and then he's getting himself ready. Then he gets into a warp pipe, and then he becomes Mario while he's in like this digital world. So he becomes Mario, and there's a bit where Mario's holding something that says Rio on it, and you think, oh, clever, it's Brazil Rio. Then he opens it and it says Mario, which I thought was really clever as well. And then eventually, there's a bit of other stuff happens, and he pops up in the middle of the closing ceremony, and it's the Prime Minister, or is it Prime Minister or President?
I'm not
I
sure.
think it's Prime Minister.
Or is it Prime Minister?
Pretty sure it's Prime Minister.
Whatever he is.
It's not Emperor anymore.
Let's call him Big Chief Japan. And he comes up a pipe with a Mario hat on and then goes, yay,
it
Mario,
It's
and you
a
come
me,
to Tokyo.
Mario.
Yeah, well, that was brilliant. But
Was.
I listened to another podcast earlier today and they were talking about that and they said it's nice to see Nintendo finally sort of allowing their big brand characters to step away from just being on a Nintendo device. And it was interesting actually, coming back to the Mario game just for a second. There was a really interesting piece that Nintendo released, like a press release, and it was about Mario and the importance of these games stepping off that device. Because they said there's basically an entire generation of kids now, unlike us, who grew up with Mario and Sonic and all these characters.
Just had Mario, there wasn't anything else, was there?
Well, yeah, there was the choice, but Mario was the thing, wasn't it? Whereas kids growing up now, it's not. It's Angry Birds and it's their Xboxes, and these characters don't exist on those consoles, so they don't know these characters. So the idea is, and I guess we'll see if it works or not, is that they get the kids hooked on their iOS devices they've all got, and they go, oh, Mario, 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 and then they go, I want more of this. I need a 3DS, or I need a Wii U, or I need an N, or whatever.
You need a SNES.
A SNES, yeah, a SNES, or a NES Classic. I've got that on order. That's coming in November. I think it'd be really interesting to see if it works. 'Cause I know that there was some examples, and I've seen people on the internet talk about this with Pokemon, where kids have got into Pokemon Go on their mobile device, and then they've really got back into the whole sort of concept of Pokemon, maybe for the first time for some of them. And they've now gone, I want that console that plays the Pokemon games.
Yeah.
And that's only Nintendo.
Yeah.
So by letting their games, their characters eke out onto another device, they're kind of hooking people back into what was our upbringing, but hasn't been for a lot of kids.
Yeah.
It's
Which I got
clever.
is quite interesting. Yeah, I like the idea of that. Because I guess a lot more gamers now, if you think about like your general household, if the adults in that household grew up with consoles, they're probably not playing Nintendo anymore. They're now on the Xboxes and the PlayStations, which means their kids are not playing Nintendo. They're playing the PlayStation and Xboxes. So they're missing a generation. So I think it's really clever. It'd be interesting to see if it works.
The modern young child as well is always forever trying to claw at their mum and dad's iPhone, and they often give it to them for attention. So having a game on it will just be the perfect way of introducing them.
Well, I suppose if you give your kid Mario, they're playing Mario for it, then they want Mario.
Yeah,
They don't want Mario on the phone anymore. They want Mario on the console. You
Yeah.
get them a console, they stop nicking your phone. There's a reason to do it.
Very clever.
Keep your phone in your own pocket. Get the grubby, greasy hands off it, like Olivia puts all over mine. So that was me on Mario. I just wanted to bring that one up. Did you want to talk about game delays?
Yeah. Obviously, I think the most recent game delay that I can think of at the moment was yesterday or today. The new South Park game has been delayed. And it just seems like 2016 has been a year of game delays. I think the most talked about one was probably No Man's Sky recently. Just before that came out, I think it was delayed by a month. Let me just check on that.
So they're not knowing enough about the industry. I mean, we don't, but Chris, you probably have even less of an idea. Games often are sort of slated to release on a certain date, like a movie is. They'll say, oh, it's coming in May on XYZ date, and then you don't see it often in movies really, because it's a different kind of industry, I suppose.
Yeah.
Movies don't tend to slip from their release dates. When they say it's going to be a month, it's in that month. Games,
I
especially
think they have
this
a lot
year,
of leeway as well, don't they?
Yeah, but there's also a lot less things that go wrong. It's not you don't have to bug fix a movie.
No.
You know, it's very easy to go from start to finish and do it. Whereas games now get ever more sophisticated. But this year, a lot of high-profile games have been slated for release in a given month that has either been and gone and they've been pushed back, or were even later in this year but have still already been pushed back now to next year. And that's happened. I mean, we can probably rattle a few off now, can't we?
I've got Final Fantasy 15, The Last Guardian recently again.
Which has been no end of delays. 10 years in the making.
Yeah, it was actually slated in 2011. So that's quite a few years.
So presumably these are all different studios, so it's not...
Yeah, these are all different people, different...
Is there a common reason? Is it budget, or do they realise they have to raise the bar so they get to a certain point?
It often depends, doesn't it? I mean, at the moment...
They never strictly tell you.
No. If it's going to be 2 or 3 months... With 2 or 3 months, they usually say, we're delaying it to put some extra polish on it, is usually the excuse they give. I mean, we'll never know for sure what that means, but they always say it's an extra bit of polish. We want to make it the best it can be.
Yeah.
And inevitably that game will... I mean, No Man's Sky was a good example. That was delayed, well, not multiple delays, but it was delayed, wasn't it?
Yeah,
and it finally
I think it was
released...
actually a month after or 2 months after.
But then it released after its polish period, inverted commas, with, was it a 1 or 2 or even bigger than that gig day one patch?
Yeah,
basically changed the whole game from the ground up. So they moved the date, released... This is the other problem. They'll when game developers put a date on a game, and this is more for Chris's benefit, they obviously have to go through the process of doing things like printing the discs, producing all the material, shipping them, boxing them, getting them out there, all that fun stuff that comes with retail. In that period of time, they're still working on these games now, because games don't ever really stop. They're always being patched, especially if they've got multiplayer functionality. They're always having to fix them. So most games now will launch, and you'll stick it in your console, go to start playing it, and it'll go, oh, there's an update. It's a couple of gig, and you have to sit there and wait while it downloads an update, because between the point in which they've printed it and sent it for final distribution and it releasing, they've made loads of changes. And No Man's Sky was fundamentally changed, wasn't it, from the ground up?
Yeah.
The reviews that people did on the early copies had to basically be rewritten because the game was completely different on release.
So you know how some games you can now download, can't you, rather than get the disc?
Yeah.
How far are we away from a world a bit similar to how DVDs almost becoming defunct, where you will no longer it'll always be a download online for a game rather than buying
it's interesting you say that, because before the Xbox One and the PS4 came out, it was all slated that they were just going to be download only.
Yeah.
And there was a big hoo-ha about what if you wanted to swap games with your friends,
Okay.
which you obviously wouldn't be able to do with the download.
No.
But I can see it going that way.
Well, Microsoft were pushing for a digital future, weren't they? And then there was a massive backlash, which is effectively why PlayStation is so far out in front this generation, because Microsoft tried to change things up a bit.
Yeah.
People didn't like it, and PlayStation cleverly hadn't done that, and went, oh, look, our ecosystem's the same way you've always known it. You can still buy it on disc and pass it to a friend. I mean, you can still buy... The one thing now that's different is this generation, everything that's physical media can be bought digitally. So I've got FIFA 17 coming out next week. I'm not buying the disc, I'm buying it digitally, and I have done for FIFA now for the last 3 years. It's the only game I'll buy exclusively digitally because it's valueless after a year, so there's no point trying to resell it.
Yeah.
And I know I'm going to play it for a year, whereas other games I tend to buy, like Overwatch, play them a little bit, realise it's not for me and sell it. But FIFA I know I'm going to buy and keep. So you can buy them digitally now. There's not so many benefits to having it digitally, and usually you pay more, which is stupid.
Yeah,
that's the one thing they've got wrong.
Yeah,
that's the stupid thing. You'd expect digital to be cheaper because you're not having to pay for the disc and all that stuff. But the way that the games are distributed, the marketplaces that they're on, like Xbox Marketplace, PlayStation Marketplace, they take a big chunk of that game sale. So it doesn't really offer any value to us as the consumer. And PlayStation are worse than Microsoft for it. Sony, sorry. Their store is always £15-20 more expensive than if you go and buy it on disc. It's bonkers. Whereas on the PC, the model they're trying to copy, which is, I guess, Steam is the successful model example of that. Mm-hmm. Games are considerably cheaper, and they come down to really low prices in these regular sales. But that's because that is the only way to buy those games now. It's become the way to buy.
Yeah.
Whereas this is where I think the Microsoft having to backtrack when there was all that backlash is the problem. Had they pushed forward with it, we might be in a world where we were looking at something more Steam-esque. But because people didn't want it and people forced them to go down that route of keeping the discs, and they wouldn't allow that change, we couldn't move to a world of pure digital where you might have seen that competition in the marketplace.
You can also look at
second option.
You can also look at it as a way with the iPhone as well, with the audio jack, you take that out, you free up more space. You take out a CD drive, you've got a ton more space. You can make a more hardware console, like more powerful.
Or just a smaller one.
Yeah.
You look at something like an Apple TV or a Roku streaming box. I know they haven't got a hard drive, so it's like, well, yeah, the new Apple TV's got a hard drive. They're tiny by comparison. I know they don't do the same sort of legwork, so they haven't got the GPUs and all that sort of fun stuff in there. But if you took a disk drive out, you do save a lot of space on a console.
Oh, yeah.
Well, it's a disk's worth of space, isn't it? Potentially you can cut that out. So it does make a massive benefit. There's lots you could do with it. I mean, the Xbox One is huge, but it's silent. It doesn't make a noise. And hopefully the new Xbox One S next week will be the same, but we'll wait and see.
So basically, my question with the game delays for a lot of the ones that have happened in 2016, I'll direct this to Chris. So I'm pretty sure I know what James's answer would be. Would you prefer a game that you could play now, that was released on time, ready for you, play it, bang, go, but it's not as polished as something that could come out a month, 2 months, 6 years later, and you'd be really happy with one, but not as happy with the other one? What would you prefer?
I would go with the latter, and I'm going to bring it back to the world I understand a bit more, and films. There have been films in the past that have been delayed and come out later, but have been sort of worth the wait.
Yeah.
I mean, conversely, there are some the other way around.
Like Batman versus Superman.
If they're finished, I'm trying to think of an example actually. But there have been some that have had sort of production delays. I'm sure Interstellar was one. I'm sure that was originally slated to be a certain month and then came out later, and it just
was
felt
Avatar
like it
as well? I seem to remember that.
Avatar, yeah,
Was
I'm
that
pretty sure.
delay?
I think Avatar was.
But I think that was a lot because of the 3D stuff, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Slightly off topic with Avatar, but can you believe we're still waiting for the sequel to that? And James Cameron is adamant he's got 5 movies lined up.
Yeah, I don't quite get
Bonkers.
that.
He hasn't made one yet. We haven't got Avatar 2 and we're talking about
No.
Avatar 5. I'm not
It's
sure how I
hard.
feel about that.
So I'd
either.
go for the latter on that basis.
Yeah.
Still my favourite 3D experience.
Yeah.
Because it was meant to be the
Immersive.
proper 3D experience. 3D experiences these days just make the film darker.
After Effects token stuff, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do I get to answer the same question?
You can, but I already know the answer.
I'd wait.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't.
And I don't know if that's a generation thing or if it's just the case that we obviously work. I mean, if you're a kid and you've got nothing else to play, then yeah, I can see how it would be frustrating. Or I mean, if you're an impatient person, I can see how it'd be frustrating. But if you pick up that game and it's like unplayable and it's buggy as hell, then your experience is going to be worse than if you waited for it.
I'd like to put an option C in, or 3. Did you number or letter them? I can't remember. I'd like a third option, which is not to put a date on it at all and release it when it's ready. Because then you get away from the whole issue of, oh yeah, we were going to release it on the 17th of August, but now it's going to be the 30th of November or something. I don't need to know that level of detail. Announce when it's going to be released, when it's ready to go. You can keep the hype train going. You can still drop little videos here, then. If I just don't commit to a date.
You could have it as a bit of a surprise, couldn't you? I mean, with there's umpteen ways that people can notify you of something available to be played. If it's like a little notification pops up on your phone, it would be a nice surprise.
Well, think about Fallout 4 is
would.
the only real example, isn't it? Fallout 4, they didn't announce that. There was literally no press around Fallout 4 whatsoever until their conference when they went, oh, by the way, this game, Fallout 4, yeah, it's ready, and you'll have it next month. And then they delivered it within a month. Like that, and that people got really hyped about that. There was a huge peak of interest. People spent loads of money on it. It did really, really well. I mean, it's supposed to be a good game. It's not my bag, but it's supposed to be a good game. But that hype, that instant peak in internet traffic and all the sort of stuff that goes along with that, surely that's better than dragging something out for years and years and years.
Just
and
thinking of money
to keep that interest.
Advertising it and stuff.
Look, this is slightly different. It's movies, but you might be able to think about this one, Chris. But Suicide Squad, for me, was a prime example of that. They spent far too long dropping little hints, things getting out the studio, clips getting released, sharing information. Oh, we got to look at the Joker. By the time it actually came out, I'd seen all the bits I was interested in, and I found the film really disappointing. But I think had they held a lot of that stuff back, maybe there'd be more to see in the film, more of the fun lines that weren't already shared in adverts. I mean, that's common with a lot of films. But Suicide Squad was just, there was so much leaked and let out and sort of teased about that film. And they're doing it now with the Justice League and the new Batman film. There's little pictures of the latest Batman outfit and whatever. And I'm thinking, save it till the film's more ready. Like, I've got years to wait for this yet. I don't care. By the time it comes out, I'm not interested anymore. Whereas with something like a game or even a movie announcement, they said to me, oh, by the way, this is brand new game coming out. Here's what it looks like, and you can have it next month. I'll be like, oh my god, that, and you can sustain that excitement for that period of time. You can't sustain it for 2 years or 10 years, as the Last Guardian's going. Then that game can't do anything but fail. It's destined to fail, isn't it?
Well, there's been, obviously, because of TGS at the moment, there's been a few people playing it, and it's been taken one or two ways. There's frustration, but because you're playing it with an animal, there's people that want the animal to come to them, but it's not coming to them because that's how an animal acts. Yeah. They're saying that it's quirky at first because that's how an animal acts, but you can see how you're going to progress through the game. It's going to get frustrating after a while.
That's a little bit like saying with something like a football game that I want true simulation, but then the referee disallows a goal that was a genuine goal, and you get really annoyed because the referee's made a mistake. You can't have that in a game.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean? Like there has to be a certain amount of it which is consistent in order for you to play that and learn and be good at it and get that feeling of reward. Whereas if the game is very random and you can't predict what's going to happen and you can't control that outcome, it's not a game, is it? Then it's I can see that not working.
I think the camera was an issue as well, which I seem to remember being.
That's because it's a 10-year-old game.
Well,
basically.
That as well. I think Ico and obviously Shadow of Colossus. I think they had camera issues as well.
Well, yeah, I mean Shadow of Colossus was played with camera.
Yeah.
It's still a great game.
That game. Yeah.
I love it, but it probably doesn't hold up that well now, I would imagine.
There was a HD version come out, didn't there?
Yeah, but even that, I don't mean the graphics. I mean, visually it's probably fine, but I think the gameplay you'll probably find... It's like Metal Gear Solid. You go right back to the first Metal Gear Solid on the 3D Metal Gear Solid. That does not play well now.
No.
Like, that's really hard to play now. Because the graphics aren't great, but also because the control scheme doesn't work. Like, it just doesn't... If you're used to something like Metal Gear Solid 4 or 5, where you've got that higher level of control of your character, and then all of a sudden you're stuck into these rigid camera angles, which was what the consoles at the time were limited to. Yeah, it doesn't play as well.
Coming back to the point about releasing things and seeing too much of it before you actually watched it, I watched the first episode of American Horror Story today, actually, and they've done something very different. They didn't release. Nobody knew anything about it. Knew what was going on. They actually released different trailers, and nobody knew which one was going to be their story. And so the first story is what it is. There's been separate trailers that sort of mislead you, so you don't know what's going to happen in the first episode, which I thought was really quirky. And what's going to happen throughout the whole season. Nobody knows what's going to happen, basically.
Also, I've never watched any American Horror Story.
I've watched, I think this is the 6th season. I've watched 1 to 4. I missed out 5. And I've just started watching this one.
You watched any of that?
I haven't, but a source who used to recommend a lot of good TV programmes has banged on about that for a while, but I've never got round to it. I've got a question for you two, actually, because it really intrigues me. 1, because Steven Spielberg's involved, and 2, because some of it's been shot in our own city.
Yes.
So, Ready Player One, have you played it or are you aware of it? I'm pretty sure the answer is yes. And 2, second part to it is, do you think it will translate to a film well?
It's not a game.
Yeah, it's a book.
It's a book. And so we can't play it, you can read it. I had the audio book. I had the audio book and listened to it, loved it. Recommended it to Carl, who read it, loved it.
Yeah.
It's a really, really good. I think Steven Spielberg will do a decent job on it, but for me, the problem with it is, do you know the premise of it?
No.
Okay, so basically,
I thought it was a game. So,
so basically, it's based 40 years in the future, something like that. I can't remember, 2045, something like that. Post-apocalyptic, the world's gone to crap kind of thing.
Basically, run out of fossil fuels.
Yeah, so cities are overcrowded, life isn't great. But in all of this, the Steve Jobs-y style character has created a VR experience called the Oasis, and now everyone lives through this VR world. Yeah, you've got people with sort of poor access to it through just a basic headset, right up to people with loads of money who have these full integrated suits that make them feel like they're part of it. And then basically this guy has died, the guy that owns the Oasis, and there's big corporations trying to get hold of it. And he creates a kind of Easter egg hunt, doesn't he, for it basically. But it's all related to 80s,
the 80s
popular
basically
culture.
The guy loves the 80s.
Yeah.
So he's recreated that whole world, hasn't he? So it's movies from the 80s, it's games from the 80s, it's books and comics. But the problem with it is...
Who better to direct than Spielberg then?
That's it. Great choice. The problem with it is, and he's probably got the most sway as well from this perspective, but it's how do you get all those licenses?
Yeah.
Because there's so many different companies involved. how'd you get all of that? But what tickled me was that obviously everyone's raving about the fact that it's in Birmingham. That's where we all live, if you can't tell from our accents. So it's been filmed in Birmingham, and everyone's like, "Yeah, we're going to film in Birmingham. That's great. Well, great for us." There's a really, really good Facebook meme that says, "Don't get too excited. If you read the first few lines of the book, it paints a pretty bleak picture." So it's
right.
like
It's a
post-apocalyptic world. Everything's gone to crap.
Actually,
We're going to
Everyone-
Birmingham.
so the-
Everyone knows on high-rise caravans.
Yeah, it's literally stacked caravans.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'll lend you the book.
They could have filmed it at the park down the road. They come round once a year.
Well, this is it. This is what I mean. So this is why everyone's going, "Oh, it's great they're filming in Birmingham," but they're filming here because it's a shithole. Basically, it's a
probably.
Is
shithole.
it Joy Quarters where they were?
But it's our shithole.
Yeah, it's our shithole. So that's not something that's
Okay.
overly thrilled about. But it should be really good if you. I mean, I'll you get the audiobook or read the book if.
I'll lend it to you.
Yeah.
Brilliant,
Sounds
really,
good.
really good read.
It's a good read.
But will it be as good for you when you're not a big gamer?
Well, this
It's
is
a
this is
big
what I
game
thought.
thing, isn't it?
Let's
It's quite
test it.
game
But there's a lot
oriented.
of 80s. Yeah. Well,
I think
give
you
it
like
a
the
read.
movie.
I think you'll like
I
it.
think you'll like it when it's a movie.
Simon Pegg as well is normally reasonable.
Is
Yeah,
he
I
in
think
it?
he's a good. I think he's a good pick for that if he's part of it. Yeah, I hope he's not the main character. He's the kid.
No, I think he's a kid. Yeah,
Yeah,
he's,
so
he's,
they're
he's definitely not the main
they're
character.
They're like
I did-
teenagers, aren't they? The main
Yeah,
characters.
I think a lot of the main characters are actually unknowns, from what I can remember. So I did read a little bit about it after I finished the book. But I'm wondering whether they're going to be able to. Because there's a lot of content in there. Because there's different levels, effectively, isn't there? For the different. I can't remember. Is it keys they collect?
Yeah, there's three different keys and gates involved in
And
there.
I'm just wondering if they're going to be able to portray the whole thing.
I'd like it to be a trilogy.
Yeah, so would I.
Whether they'll do that though or not.
That's it. We'll have to wait and see.
It's a great story. Really good
It
story.
is a good story.
And a lot of it will be CGI because a lot of it is based in game. So what happens is in the Oasis they put this headset on, and in some places they're just in sort of virtual reality shopping malls. But then in that same world they can get into some sort of travel system and go to a replica world that looks like Star Wars or looks like Star Trek or looks like Lord of the Rings. So they can go to any of these places, and then some of these places are classed as harmful, where they can get killed. Their virtual avatar can be killed, and they have to start from level 0 again or 1. And then other worlds they're safe and protected. It's quite interesting, but it's all about how you represent yourself in the digital world. So the reality is, in the real world, these kids are sort of the main kid is like a big fat kind of outsider.
Yeah.
But in the Oasis, he's normal looking. He's got a fairly basic avatar because he's got no money and he's poor and stuff. And then his life changes dramatically through this, both in the real world and the game world. It's really good.
Actually,
Really
I think in the pictures from Birmingham, I think there's actually the little, because he uses like a little van that's sort of crushed in between other ones. I think you actually see in one of the pictures that I think was on Twitter, where
His little base where he goes away to. Yeah, it's good. It is good. I don't want to spoil it for anyone who has either not read the book or is waiting for the film, but it is really interesting. Just for reference, boys, we've hit the hour mark, so episode 1 is at least an hour long. Sorry, folks, if this is boring you, but you won't listen to episode 2. But we'll carry on because we've got some of the bits we want to talk about. Shall I go next? I've got my So I added Gears of War 4, the Horde mode trailer that was released. But since they released that, the Coalition who make the game have released a blog giving a bit more detail about it. So I read the blog and sort of pulled out the summary points. It would have been good for our friend AJ to have been here for this because we, as a 3, Carl, have all played this game. Chris, you've not really played it, so you might find this bit a bit boring.
Okay.
But
you'll
I've
be
read
able to
a
watch
bit-
the film eventually, because there's bound to be a Gears of War film at some point.
So the Horde mode specifically, I'm not interested in the game itself. Well, I am, but not for this purpose. So the Horde mode, I read some extra details on because we really spent a lot of time on Horde in Gears of War 3, which is brilliant. So I thought I pulled out sort of the summary points to give you a feel for some of the things that are in there, get you excited for it as it's out in a few weeks. So as before, 5 players against the Horde. You build defences like in Gears 3. It's set across 50 waves, and every 10th wave is your boss fight, so that's standard stuff, carrying over from the 3rd one. This time, the fortifications that you build aren't fixed, so you can move them around anywhere you like, so you don't have to put them wherever the little glowing frames are that sort of guide you towards them. And everything is built around this fabricator. It's basically a 3D printer, and it's your hub, which is what you have to earn credits to fill and generate content from, and then you spend in this hub to create the things that you want to build, the fortifications, the weapons, the turrets, and all that fun stuff. Fallen comrades drop tags now. So if someone drops a tag, you can collect that tag, take it back to the hub, and regenerate them.
3D print the person.
3D print the person, yeah. So you can regenerate them in that wave if you need to. So if you're up against it, but you do spend. I'm trying to think I wrote down what they're actually called. Energy. They call it. It's just called energy. So you collect energy from killing the bad guys or the enemies. That then builds up, and you have to collect the energy. So someone has to go out and collect it, which is quite cool. The energy is then used to build fortifications and regenerate your character. So I'm guessing, a bit like Gears 3, you're going to stockpile for the first however many waves until it gets really difficult, and then you're going to start spending like mad to try and stay alive.
That was very similar to the first Gears 3, wasn't it?
There's a new class system in it. So you've now got 5 different classes, I think. I've got them written down, I'll have a look in a second. I think there's 5 different classes. So it's a slight twist on the gameplay. But that worried me a little bit when I first saw it, but I'm quite pleased, having read this, that it actually doesn't sound like it's that big an impact. So anyone, any class can do anything, basically.
Yeah.
It's just that they start with certain equipment. So if you're an engineer, you start with certain gear. If you're a scout, you start with certain engineer.
Yeah.
But you're not faster or slower or different in that way. It comes down to your weapons. You also get skills that you can apply to your characters, which are basically like perks.
Yeah.
And you upgrade those as you go along, getting better perks and better skills to make your character more useful in combat. And they're good for if you have got. So they were saying if you've got an imbalanced team, so no one's picked a certain role, you can use some of the skill cards to compensate for the gaps that might be left with that. The different roles, you've got your engineer, which is focusing on fortifications, and the real problem with them is they lack personal firepower. So they've got the tools to maintain and keep fortifications upgraded. Again, things that other people can pick up and use, but they get it by default. But they lack personal firepower. You've got the heavy, sounds like my kind of character, dealing big damage, explosives, slow moving and require lots of ammo. So that's the sort of downside with them. With the big weapons they're carrying, obviously it slows you down, like the miniguns from the old game. So you have to keep the ammo up. So if you've got the sort of the boomers or whatever the equivalents are going to be, you've got to keep that ammo topped up because you've got limited ammo, whereas obviously the other characters can just unload rounds and rounds and rounds and top up quite easily. You've got your scouts. Now, these are the guys who are designed to move around the map. So they are the ones that are supposed to be out there getting those energy things that you get from the bad guys. So that's their key role.
They have a sniper rifle.
There is a sniper with a sniper rifle. The scout has close combat weapons, so it's the equivalent of your old Call of Duty stabby. It's a risk. The downside they listed on the blog was that it's a riskier role required to be out in the field. So they're going to be at risk of getting popped and killed. Your sniper is all about headshots, so they get bonuses for headshots and they've got extra power for their headshots. So again, anyone can have a sniper rifle, but the sniper is going to deliver that killer blow better. Their downside is they rely heavily on precision, which is quite interesting. And then you've got the soldier, is the last of the 5th class. Most akin to the original Gears combat. They don't really have any downsides, but they don't have any favourable elements either. They're very much an all-rounder. So you could, in theory, play as that if you wanted to. So interestingly, I was going to ask you all this, and no point asking Chris, no disrespect, which were those roles appeals to you the most? I think I probably know the answer, but...
Well, you'd think the sniper, but I'm not that accurate. I think the stabby. I like the stabby. Although with the Gears of War camera, it might be a bit of an issue. So I seem to remember that can be quite jerky sometimes.
I've said stabby. I don't think it will be stabbing. It's going to be things like shotgun rolling and stuff like that.
Shotgun and stuff.
It's going to be their equivalent of that.
I'd like to give that a go. Run around getting energy.
I think I favour the heavy or maybe just the generic soldier because I'm a Gears purist. I love Gears as it was. Fortifications, I've got all those written down for you. So you've got the barriers, just designed to slow or block the enemies. You've got the decoys to draw enemy fire. You've got the MG sentries to deal additional damage. There's shock sentries, so very similar to the MG sentry, but it's focused on slowing and delaying the enemy. So just designed to basically drag them down a bit. Turrets, player control, big damage. You've got weapons lockers, which is quite cool. So you can now store weapons between rounds.
Okay.
So if you
don't run out of
so you can get. I guess if you've got a heavy in your team, you want the scout out there collecting all the ammo and stuff to keep them topped up. I'm assuming that's how it plays. And then there's the repair tool for which the engineer has by default, but others can get. Progression-wise, your class levels represent your experience within each class. So each class is going to have its own max level cap of 10. Leveling that unlocks skill slots. So the more you up your class, the more skills you can have in the class. And then your skills can also be upgraded with a maximum level of 5 in order to give them more benefit, more perks. So I guess a bit like you could upgrade some of the elements in the old Gears 3 Horde mode, and you could increase the defensive capabilities by a few percentage of certain objects and things like that.
Sounds good.
And the remaining thing that I picked up from that blog was that you can invite friends into a Horde game, even if they weren't there at the very start. So if you wanted someone that you had got in with you drops out, and you want to invite a friend in, you can fill that gap part of the way through rather than before. If you lost your fourth member or fifth member, you were then stuck as a 3 for the rest of the game trying to battle on through the harder levels. So that's quite good as well. You do also have the choice to customise experience by turning off fortifications altogether if you want to go back to old school style
I
play.
bet you get to 50.
Well, I guess the hardcore players probably will. It's a challenge, isn't it? And you can also turn off the skill cards if you don't like those. So you have the option to scale it back a little bit to more sort of classic Horde mode from Gears 2 if you want to. But I'm really excited for that.
Yeah, it's definitely.
I was a bit unsure with the first Gears 4 trailer, but now I'm well on board now. Looking forward to that. And that was the last of my talking points. I had got Super Hot down to talk about, but I'm not going to bother with that this week. I'm going to play it a bit more. I'd hoped to have played more of that than I have, so I'll keep it for another day.
It's a very interesting concept.
I like Super Hot. It is good, but
Cool.
Perhaps we'll pick up on that one when we've got AJ with us as well.
Yeah.
Who else has anything left on our list of things we wanted to talk about? I think everyone has covered them, unless you wanted to pick up one of your questions, Chris, that you creatively came up with minutes before we started.
Okay. Yeah, let's go for one. Carl, give me a genre.
Action.
Action. Thought that was going to be your first thought. Favourite action film?
I'd probably have to say Die Hard. Die Hard 3 with a vengeance.
Die Hard 3?
Yeah.
It's a good film. I was thinking in my head then, does Jurassic Park count as an action film? It's probably not, as it's science fiction, isn't it?
Yeah, science
Sci-fi.
fiction, fantasy.
Yeah, I'd go sci-fi.
I'd probably sway back towards Die Hard then as my sort of classic action film. I think back to anything Bruce Willis, Stallone,
or Arnie.
Yeah.
Arnie,
Commando.
anything like that is good for me. But
Yeah.
I'd probably go for one of the Die Hards. I don't have a favourite. Depends on which day you ask me.
Yeah.
Some days I love the third one. Other days I'm well on board with the airport one, Die Hard 2. And then other days I just like the classic. I think I'd probably lean towards the first one just because Hans Gruber is still for me one of the best bad guys in a film ever. Rest in peace. He was
Alan
brilliant.
Rickman, yeah.
Alan Rickman was fantastic in that, and as Severus Snape in all the Harry Potter films. But Hans Gruber for me. So I'd probably say Die Hard 1. You, Chris?
Predictably,
You can't say
Die
Die
Hard,
Hard.
actually. I think
Just
Predators,
say the second one to complete the trilogy.
sci-fi. Predators, sci-fi, and I'd say something like Terminator 2 is also sci-fi. So if you're discounting them, I'd say a pure action film, Die Hard. I'd definitely say the first two are the strongest, though.
Really?
I'm not a
I
huge
love the third
fan
one.
of the third one as much. Yeah, the first two I love.
I think for me, though, the reason the third one holds a place for me is because that was the first one I really got into.
Yeah.
Because the other ones were released before I was really old
Yeah.
enough. Well, the third one was released before I was old enough to see Die Hard, but I remember that third one being advertised, thinking, I really want to see that. And then I went to the local video rental store when you could still rent videos. And I
Yeah.
rented for a couple of pounds Die Hard 1 and 2 on VHS for a week over the school holidays. And I specifically remember watching those over and over again.
Yeah.
But it was the third one that made me want to go and seek out this Die Hard film, you know. I didn't really know much about it at that point, so...
The Die Hard trilogy game sold me on the third one as well. I remember
I hated the third part of that game
Oh,
the most.
I like the driving one. The driving one was probably
So
my
what we'll do,
favourite.
we will stream you playing that now. I've got it on the Sega Saturn at home. It is awful.
Oh yeah, no, I have
Plays
played it.
awfully.
Even I
Nothing
love that
from
game, though.
It's a nostalgia trip. That I mean, all the three game modes play badly. The second one holds at the best
Yeah.
because it's just that first person.
It's
on
too
rail
difficult, the
shooter.
second one, for me. I've seen as a non-gamer. I found it too difficult.
Yeah,
I
it was
couldn't get
easy
past-
with the light gun. I had the light gun back in the day, but
Time Crisis.
Time Crisis, yeah, back in the day. But none of that stuff works anymore. You've got to buy an adapter
Yeah,
for flat screen to
yeah.
make those work. Because they used to work on the CRTs, didn't they? Reflection of light. They don't work anymore.
So, what would your favourite Arnie film be then?
Ooh, that's Terminator 2. Easy.
Well, that's a good Terminator. Literally no time to think about that one whatsoever. Terminator 2.
What's yours?
I'd probably say Commando. I do like Commando.
Best lines in an action film ever.
Yeah.
Jingle All the Way. It's a good Christmas film. I'm not having it. It's a good
When he
Christmas-
punches the
It's
reindeer.
Arnie as a superhero in a Christmas film. I love superheroes and I love Christmas. Happy days. Jingle All the Way.
Who
It's not
doesn't
my,
love
it's not my
Christmas?
favourite, but I do like it. It's a
Yeah.
good film. What is my favourite Arnie film? I'm thinking of all these random stuff like Junior and
Yeah.
so I'm thinking Predator's probably my favourite Arnie film, but not because of Arnie, because I like the Predator.
Yeah.
And as a kid growing up, I really liked Predator. I had one of those little models that you make and painted, and I loved it. So I wouldn't call that an Arnie. It's an Arnie film, obviously, but I don't think of it as being an Arnie film. I think of Predator as being part of the Alien and Predator universe. It just happened to star Arnie. But then every Predator film after that's been pretty poor, hasn't it? So.
Yes.
Did you see Predators with the guy with the big nose in it?
Yes.
That was pretty bad, wasn't it?
Yes.
I don't really like that very much. Aliens versus Predator 2 was particularly bad.
Yes.
Was that the one where they were all doing it on Earth? And it had the woman from
yes.
Had the woman from 24 in, didn't it?
Yeah, she makes friends with the Predator and he
Yeah.
saves her at the end. So random. You're supposed to kill everything. Stop helping her. But yeah, it was a weird one. Okay, so are we happy? Everyone talked about what they wanted to talk about in this episode. I've got a little quiz for you, which I'm hoping will start and be a regular thing, but we'll see.
For those that you don't know, James does like a quiz. He's hosted 2 huge charity events for his marathon fundraising, which are very well attended.
I like to do the quiz. I don't like being on a quiz team because I have rubbish general knowledge, but I like doing a quiz. So I thought we'd have something that we could continue over the course of these podcasts. Now, I appreciate we're not always going to be always on the same podcast together. But it'll be a rolling score. You know, I'm kind of ripping off anyone who follows the IGN Unlocked podcast. I've got 3 questions, though. They only have 1. So obviously that makes us superior. And in the interest of fairness, Chris, I have tried to pick a question from the gaming world, one from the movie world, and one from the TV world.
Happy with
They're
that.
all multiple choice. And we might need to take a pause for a second, unless people want to get their phones out to put their scores out, because I wanted to know that you're playing fair and not lying when I ask you what your answer was. So do you want to... They're multiple choice. You've got your phones to hand? Or
Yep.
a bit of
I
paper or
can
something?
type it on this.
Okay, so I will ask you the question, you put your answer down, and then I'll ask you what your answer was and why you thought it was that answer. So question 1, which is the gaming question. Princess Zelda from the Legend of Zelda games by Nintendo has gone by a few names. Which of these names has she not been called in a video game? So which has she not been called in a video game? A, and I'm going to pronounce all these wrong. I didn't think this through before I put this question down. A, Sheik. B, Malon. C, Tetra. Or D, Zelda. Do you need to hear those again?
Please.
So which of these has she not been called? Sheik, Malon, Tetra, or Zelda? Happy with that? Mm-hmm. Okay. Question 2 is your movie question. In the movie Who Framed Roger Rabbit, which pair of genetically similar characters perform a piano duet?
Oh God, I haven't seen that film in
Is it A, Bambi and Bullwinkle? Is it B, Donald Duck and Daffy Duck? Is it C, Garfield and Sylvester? Or is it D, Speedy Gonzales and Minnie Mouse? Do you need that again?
Yes.
So in a movie Who Framed Roger Rabbit, which pair of genetically similar characters perform a piano duet? A, Bambi and Bullwinkle. B, Donald Duck and Daffy Duck. C, Garfield and Sylvester. D, Speedy Gonzales and Minnie Mouse. Got an answer you're happy with?
Yeah.
And the third
It's a bit of
question
a guess, I think.
is your TV one. According to research conducted by Luth Research and based on 2,500 subscribers who were analysed, which of the following shows had the biggest viewing rate in its opening days of release on Netflix? Netflix specifically. A, Bloodline. B, House of Cards. C, Daredevil. D, Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. So the question again, according to research conducted by Luth Research and based on 2,500 subscribers who were analysed, it's only a small sampling, which of the following shows had the biggest viewing rate in its opening days of release? A, Bloodline. B, House of Cards. C, Daredevil. D, Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt.
Have you ever watched that Unbreakable, Kimmy Schmidt?
No, it sounds awful.
Chris?
No, I haven't.
It is
Is it
awful.
good? Oh, okay.
This is from the man who's watched Made in Chelsea, Towie, and all this fun stuff.
No, none of those.
Yeah, whatever. Okay, so everyone happy they've got an answer for every question?
Yes.
Chris, question 1, the Zelda question. Which of those names did you believe she had never been called?
I've gone for Malon.
Malin, okay. Any particular reason why?
No, it's a guess.
Carl, what have you gone for?
I went for Malin as well.
You went for Malin as well, any particular reason?
Because I think Shriek, you could play as a character in Smash Brothers. Mm-hmm. Malin, I've never heard before. Zelda is obviously her name. And what was the other one?
Tetra.
Tetra, I'm pretty sure I've heard that one before as well in one of the Zelda games.
You were pleased to know you're both correct.
Yeah.
Well done. One.
Mine factual, yours not.
It's an educated guess.
Oh, but you need to talk me through your educated guesses. I need to know how you came to it. Question 2 was the
educated,
Roger Rabbit
yes.
question. Which of the genetically similar characters performed a piano duet? Carl.
I went for Bambi and Bullwinkle.
Bambi and Bullwinkle.
I think I'm wrong there, though.
I've also gone for that. I'm confident they're in the film. I just couldn't remember if they're in that specific scene.
Bambi and Bullwinkle. So no one remembers that scene. You're both wrong. I remember this. It's Donald Duck and Daffy Duck. They play the piano together and they're pushing each other off the stool. And
I don't think I've watched Who Framed Roger
Bambi's
Rabbit
far too soft to be doing a
since
piano
I was-
duet.
I know. I just remember
Since
them
I
being in
was
the
little.
film.
I thought you'd have been one up there, Chris. I thought you'd have that.
Nah.
So question 3 then was about the research based on Netflix, the biggest opening days of release. So the first few days that it was out, the viewing rate. So who wants to go first? Chris.
Okay. I actually think I've got this wrong. It was sort of head over heart. Actually, no, the opposite way around. Sorry, it's heart over head, because my head is telling me that the analytics isn't very often released by Netflix at all. And I seem to remember when they did release some, it was really surprising which shows were most popular. So I've gone for...
Netflix didn't release these analytics, though.
Oh, didn't they?
No.
Oh, I wasn't listening to the question properly, was I? I've gone for House of Cards.
Go for House of Cards, Carl.
I went for Daredevil.
You went for Daredevil.
I've got a feeling it's going to be Kimmy Smith, though. Oh, Lord.
No, it's Daredevil.
Oh, it is Daredevil.
So this was only at 2,500 people. Interestingly, Netflix don't release analytics; they refuse to release them.
Yeah.
They don't base.
I thought I'd
don't
heard
lay
they
anything out.
did, and it was quite surprising which shows were
These are
most watched.
surprising numbers, but these are done by an independent research company.
Right.
So they sampled 2,500 people
Yeah.
and looked at the numbers. So I'll give you the numbers. I wrote them down because I thought they were interesting. Daredevil had, and I don't know what the percentage is of. It's 10.7% was the number for Daredevil in terms of the viewing
So
figures.
of the 2,500,
Yeah.
yeah.
House of Cards was 6.5%. Bloodline was 2.4%. Unbreakable Commission was 7.3%, so greater than House of Cards.
I suppose House
This
of
isn't
Cards is
sustainable.
quite
This
niche.
is
Yeah.
the opening release. So if you think with
Daredevil
Daredevil
was
had a
majorly
lot of
hyped.
advertising, went big,
Yeah.
and they said the numbers were high, and then they came down quite quickly.
Yeah.
House of Cards was a slower burn,
Yeah.
although it was well advertised. It didn't have the same following as Daredevil did.
No.
Daredevil had the whole geek culture thing.
Yeah,
behind it,
House
whereas
Cards is very niche.
didn't, yeah.
Yeah.
House of Cards interesting. I don't know if you know how that they came about making that. Do you know the story behind House of Cards?
No.
So this is Netflix have got a lot of algorithms that check what you do, what you watch, what you like, and what things you're into. So they decided to use that to look at what would make a good show, because House of Cards is one of the Netflix's first originals, and they saw that people searched and looked a lot for Kevin Spacey, and that the House of Cards, because it's a remake of a previous TV show, was really popular. So they decided to do a remake of House of Cards with Kevin Spacey, because those two things were very popular in their search engine, and that's how they came up with that concept of a show.
Wow.
So they use your viewing preferences to sort of steer towards the kind of content they create.
That is
So
the
it's
modern
quite
world,
interesting.
isn't it? Yeah.
So that was the quiz. So I think, what did we get there? 2 points for Carl, 1 point for Chris. I'll make a note of that, and we'll keep that for next time.
Power grab.
Earlier, I'm disappointed in you, Chris, with the Roger Rabbit, but never mind. We'll let you off. I think we've gone on for far long enough now. We're up to just shy of 1.5 hours. So
If you're still listening, your device is broke and you can't stop.
you can get an infinite loop now of Chris talking about movies. So we'll just wrap up there then, I think, and we'll call it quits ahead of episode 2, which we'll get round to recording in the next couple of weeks, hopefully.
Yep.
So if you've got any questions for us in the meantime, you can send them to bossbattlenetwork@gmail.com or tweet us at bossbattlenet, and we will read them out, and we'll perhaps you can contribute to my quiz, so I haven't got to keep finding these every week. So as we start to gain some listenership, maybe we can get some listener questions as well. That would be good. Keep you on your toes.
Non-game questions.
Non-game
well,
questions.
yeah.
We'll see. I think you're going to get a few. Otherwise, thanks for tuning in. Hopefully you found it interesting. Subscribe if you haven't already. Follow us on YouTube and Twitch as well. You can find us at Boss Battle Network on both of those accounts. And we'll see you next time. Thanks very much.
Bye.
Bye.